any major football tournament today, and you're looking at a global power. FIFA oversees a sport played by billions, generating over $7 billion in revenue and counting 211 member nations across the globe. This is the executive summary from a FIFA governance reform report. It describes an organization that functions like a multinational corporation, self-regulated, independent, and wielding authority that rivals a quasi-international government. But in the late 19th century, the picture looked entirely different. Football was spreading rapidly across Europe, but it was a chaotic mess. There were no standardized rules, and different regions played by completely conflicting systems. The British football associations, who had invented the modern game, were the obvious candidates to fix this. But when approached to lead an international governing body, they explicitly refused. That rejection left a small group of continental European nations with a choice: let the sport remain fractured, or attempt to build an international organization entirely from scratch. On May 21, 1904, representatives from 7 continental nations gathered at 229 Rue Saint-Honoré in Paris. They were there to form the Fédération Internationale de Football Association. Under Robert Guerin, they drafted statutes to force order, mandating uniform laws, recognizing player bans, and allowing only one association per country. This unified continental bloc pressured the British FA with exclusion from international play, forcing England to officially join in 1905. With the British on board, the federation expanded rapidly. Over the next decade, nations from South Africa to Argentina to the United States signed on. Those initial Paris rules converted a fractured regional pastime into a coordinated international system, proving the global concept was actually viable. Then, the sudden outbreak of World War I in 1914 halted that momentum. Europe fractured, borders closed, and international football stopped entirely. The organizational structure collapsed almost immediately. The British associations withdrew in protest of being grouped with enemy nations, and the sitting FIFA president, Daniel Burley-Woolfall, died in 1918. The federation was functionally dead. The member nations supposed to be organizing matches were now fighting each other in the trenches. The only person left running the administration was a Dutch banker named Karl Hirschman. As the general secretary, he was based in the neutral Netherlands. Operating from his Amsterdam offices, Hirschman used his own personal funds to keep the federation alive. He maintained correspondence with associations across enemy lines, handling the administrative duties alone to prevent the organization from legally dissolving. FIFA emerged from the wreckage of the war solely through the geographic loophole of Dutch neutrality and Hirschman's willingness to personally subsidize the secretariat. After the armistice, Hirschman stepped in as acting president. He spent months forcing former enemies back to the negotiating table, eventually reuniting them at the 1920 Antwerp Congress. Having stabilized the fractured body, Hirschman handed control to Jules Rimet in 1921, securing a clear path for future leadership. Rimet capitalized on that stability. 9 years later, he launched the first World Cup in Uruguay, creating a template for international competition that persists today. But Hirschman's story ends with a tragic irony. In 1929, the Wall Street crash sent global markets into a tailspin, and his Amsterdam stock trading company went completely bankrupt. For years, Hirschman had been investing the federation's funds through his own firm. The crash wiped out the organization's money, and in 1931, he was forced into a quiet, unceremonious resignation. Modern FIFA, with its 211 member nations and billion-dollar revenue cycles, exists at a scale far beyond the imagination of its creators. But that reach is only possible because Hirschman and the original Paris founders refused to let a fragile idea die.